Welcome to the UK PTs Podcast, where we delve into the world of personal training one episode at a time. Here are your hosts, Joshua Mullin and Mark Laws.
Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of the UK PTs Podcast. I'm Joshua Mullin. This is my co-host, Mark Laws. How's it going, Mark?
All good, mate. All very good, thank you. It's sun's shining down here, so it's nice to have a little bit of blue sky and sun shining through the window.
Nice, good times. So I'm just going to quickly mention that we've got 2 sponsors on board for this episode. So we've got PTToolbox.clothing, which is it's my company, and basically we provide custom branded uniforms for personal trainers. And we've got some offers coming up. I can't mention it on the podcast because they're still being finalized. But if you visit PTToolbox.clothing, you can go on there, you can see all of our products and you can put your logo on them and then they can be sent to you, super high quality. And there's going to be some awesome stuff being launched the week that this podcast goes live. So I can't mention too much until it's final. And then our other sponsor is Wolverson. Am I correct?
You are correct, mate. Yeah, Wolverson Fitness have given us a discount code which anyone listening to this can use, and you can use it for your clients. So obviously we're in the middle of lockdown, so if anyone needs any home equipment or anything, UKPT1010, and you'll get yourself a 10% discount on anything that you purchase.
Boom. So before we go into the episode and we introduce our guest, have you been up to much this week?
I've been working, which is unusual for me, but I have got a project for Future Fit that has a fairly imminent deadline that I have been sort of working pretty much every waking hour on, but it's all coming together nicely. So I've been stuck to my laptop other than a couple of runs with the dog. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, same actually. So we've talking about courses. I've recently just launched a course on PT Toolbox, which is called Underground Strength. You may have heard of it, Mark, because
I think it rings a bell. Yeah.
I think it does because you actually wrote the course. So
yeah, I did. I wrote it for you. Yeah.
And
it is, how have you been getting on so far?
So basically, I spent all of Monday going through every single video. So basically, I edited them all whilst watching them. So I watched every single video in their entirety. And as you can see, I've got my kettlebells, I've got my parallettes, and I've also, over there that you can't see, I've got a TRX and a pull-up bar on the wall. So I've been using some of the principles that I've learned throughout the lesson. So the isometric lesson has been put into play quite a few times now with isometric kettlebell holds and stuff, overhead holds, a lot of the odd lifts as well. So I've been trying to do the like 2 hands anyhow and stuff like that, which is awesome. But yeah, so for someone that doesn't really know what underground strength is, the course, how would you explain it?
It is it's something that I wrote based loosely on the principles of some of the old school strongmen. You're looking back at sort of like the late 1800s, from about 1870, 1880 up until start of the 20th century, and it just always I'll come back to why I gained an interest in that in a second, but it's just the fact that those guys and girls they didn't have supplements, they didn't have fancy apparatus, they didn't have fancy equipment, they had very, very little knowledge of like sports science or anything that we have access to today, yet they set world records that probably nobody alive today could get anywhere near. And so the course is based loosely on the differences between the way they trained back then compared to the way that most people train today. And it's just kind of like a little bit of a history lesson. and then there is a ridiculous amount of practical stuff that people can play around with and implement. And there's no rule saying that every single person must do everything off the course. But if you're a semi-decent coach and you gain the information that's on that course, you'll find that there's a lot of places where it very easily creeps into your programming. And when you then look at improving performance, that's which is the aim of the game, then it is, I won't lie, it's bloody good.
I would agree. I mean, I would say that, but I've been through all the content and I think it's amazing. So if anybody wants to sign up for the Underground Strength course, it's all online. You can visit pttoolbox.co.uk, but I will also put the specific link below me right now. And for the first 100 people that sign up, we've had 50-ish already who have signed up.
They get an absolute bargain, don't they? What have you hemorrhaged the price?
It's normally £97, but for the first 100, it's 47, which is a fucking bargain. It's a steal. You're basically robbing me and Mark just before Christmas. But yeah, so that'll be limited. So if you're listening to this in 2029, then that offer is probably finished. And me and Mark
hopefully we've sold 100 spaces by then, yeah.
Hopefully. So yeah, while that's still around £47, even at £97, it's a bargain. But yeah, so
so on that course, I think there's got to be over 7 hours of interviews that I've recorded with some absolute legends. Jeff Capes, 2-time world's strongest man, Brooks Kubik, Tom Crudgington, Chris Peel. And who was the fifth one? There's a fifth one. Oh, might just be 4.
It was the dude from America.
Oh, Bud Jeffries.
That's the one.
Yes, absolute beast of a man. There's over 7 hours of interviews with them talking in great detail about the things that they've achieved and how they've achieved them and their methods of training and all that sort of stuff. There's over like 100 exercises on there. There's dozens of workouts. I think it's probably about 20 hours of presentations and education and stuff like that. So it's a decent hourly rate.
100%. So without further ado, today's guest is Ben Coomber. I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of people need an introduction to Ben.
I don't think they do.
He's very prolific in the fitness industry. So I think without further ado, we should let him in and get started.
Do it.
Let's go. Ben, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Oh, hello. Mate, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. How are you two?
All good. Can't complain.
Marvellous.
Okay. Nice. So the first section that we're going to jump into, it's a quick fire round known as the 27 Club. Not, the similar 27 Club about people that have died, rock stars and stuff at the age of 27. We're going to ask you 9 questions 3 times. So round 1 is education. Round 2 is about your industry experience. And round 3 is about you personally. So, Mark, I'm doing round 1, I believe. Have you got your stopwatch ready?
Ready, mate. Look at me. Chief of all admin. Of course I'm ready.
Chief Executive Admin Officer. So round 1 is about your education. We've got 90 seconds starting now. So, Ben, in which year did you qualify?
In what? Personal training?
Personal training, yes.
2006, I think.
Who is your education provider?
I got my level 3 through doing a degree in sports performance and coaching.
Fancy. How long did it take you to qualify?
That's a lie. It was initially through the Czech Institute and then it was my degree. Sorry. What did you then say?
How long did it take?
Oh, I don't know. About a year?
Nice. What was the last CPD you completed? Be that reading or whatever?
Probably the DENT program for business.
Nice. What is the next CPD that you've got your eye on?
Don't know.
What is the highest level of qualification or education that you've got so far?
Degree, I suppose.
Should a PT ever be reassessed? And if so, how often?
That or some kind of stricter CPD, which I think is a bit too loose in the industry.
Yes, I definitely agree. What skill did you gain on your PT course that you use most often today?
Probably just looking at an individual for the full picture, like really holistically.
Nice, good answer. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at your job?
9.
Nice. We got seconds to spare.
You've got 5 seconds to spare. Easy peasy. We'll save those 5 seconds because we might go over at some point. Ben, round 2. Are you ready?
Yes.
Please tell me the most underrated person, product, or thing in the industry.
Books on mindset.
Now tell me the most overrated person, product, or thing.
People focusing too much on nuances of training and stuff like strength and conditioning when you're coaching 40-year-old women.
Could you please give us the title of a book that all PTs would be advised to read?
How to Be an Awesome Personal Trainer by Ben Coomber.
Foam rolling, yes or no?
It's not my area of specialty. You can answer that one, Mark.
For how long did you do gym hours before working exclusively as a personal trainer?
0.
Which common fitness myth do you wish that you could debunk forever?
You have to go on, I don't know, Jesus, there's too many. You have to go on a low-carb diet to lose weight, maybe?
Okay. And what is the best piece of work-related advice that you've ever been given?
Master yourself and everything else will follow.
Ultimate fitness industry podcast guest.
Martin Rooney is probably the most motivational man I've ever listened to.
And finally, can you please tell us your favourite 3 exercises?
Walking.
Or your favourite 3 variations of a bicep curl.
Walking, probably carrying something heavy and of an awkward sort of, just an awkward size and shape, and overhead.
Nice.
Overhead pressing.
Just doing things overhead, carrying, maybe handstand, just like the movement of carrying and supporting load over the head.
Cool. Happy days, mate. Easy peasy. Round 3 is all sort of personal whatnots, and Josh is going to grill you. 3, 2, 1, off you go.
Mr. Ben Coomber, cats or dogs?
Dog.
Favorite city that you visited?
Maybe Edinburgh?
Good choice.
Great shout.
If you could attend any concert, who would be playing? Mark Laws, obviously.
DJ.
Say again.
Wilkinson, DJ, drum bass DJ.
What was the last TV series that you watched or streamed an episode of?
Watching The Nick on Sky about old medical surgery and practice.
Interesting. If you could choose anyone to play you in a movie, who would it be?
Oh, Mark Laws.
Tea or coffee, and how'd you take it?
Coffee, strong, black.
Nice. Would you rather go backwards in time to speak to your ancestors or forward in time to speak to your descendants?
Forward in time, like what's knowing more about the past going to do?
True. This is a real important issue for current events. Would you rather shag a goat and nobody will ever know, or not shag the goat but everyone thinks that you did?
Well, I think public perception is everything, so probably the latter.
Okay.
But personal preference?
Am I Durexed up?
Yes.
Yeah, you can be safe.
Oh, give the goat a bonk, why not?
No one else has, so you might as well be the first.
Yeah, let's buck a trend.
Finally, name one thing that is still on your bucket list.
Ooh, probably to go across Canada, some of the wild parts of Canada on a skidoo.
Oh, wow. 100%.
Oh.
Sounds awesome. Okay, that is it. You have now joined the elite network of the 27 Club. There's only, what is there now, 7 members. So once we get the t-shirts made, we'll send one out.
That was
It'll be a
intense.
nice Christmas present for you.
We're done, right?
Of the questions, yeah, not the whole thing.
Okay, all right, let's carry on.
Okay, so the next part of the podcast is the interview. So building on some of the questions from the 27 Club, we normally ask our guest some questions, kind of, you know, anywhere from how did you start in the industry and everything kind of else that, you know, the world wants to know about Ben Coomber. So Mark, have you got any questions to start with, or would you like me to go first?
You go first, and I'll, because I think yours will be better coming before me.
I always come first. Boom. So,
that noise you make as well.
yes. So Ben, as you can see here, I have a highly recommended book so that everyone can see it. It's How to Be an Awesome Personal Trainer by a guy called Ben Coomber. You may have read it, I'm not sure. So the question that I wanted to ask is, obviously with personal trainers at the moment, they are constantly bombarded with different options for education and CPD and courses and books and all this stuff. Do you have any kind of maybe a short list of the top skills that you think personal trainers should prioritize? I know that's a bit of a general statement and it will vary, but as an example, communication skills or stuff like that, do you have a list of recommended skills they should learn?
Sure. You've obviously got the basics, level 2 and 3, so we'll leave that there. The chances are most trainers in some capacity are going to be working with nutrition and lifestyle. So I think nutrition and lifestyle has to come on top of that. I think after that, you've then got to look at communication, coaching skills. But hopefully once that let's say that trainer's taken 2 years to do level 2, level 3, nutrition, and maybe something else on top, like a kettlebell workshop or a TRX or a movement or something. And then after 2 years, they start to see where they really want to specialize. You know, they might really want to work in sports or with elderly people or with females or whatever. Then really your CPD should probably be focused in those areas. I did it as a young coach. I'm coaching women. You know, we're on the fat loss train, you know, but I'm still got my head in strength and conditioning principles, but I'm not able to apply any of it because I'm not working with that population. So if you want to specialize in females, elderly, whatever, I'd probably focus your CPD once you've got the kind of real core skills down. But if you were to kind of look at a hit list, generally people are missing out on what is the power of a true coach, and that's effective communication, effective problem solving through compassionate questioning or client-led coaching. And then after that, probably the business side of it, like you can never ignore that, because most personal trainers I speak to will say, I'm working too much, I'm not earning enough, don't have time for my own training, and actually I want change. And I'm like, you've got to then treat yourself as a business. That's the only way it's going to change.
That makes a lot of sense. So are there any skills that you kind of have noticed that you really needed to work on over the past, say, 5 years? Is there anything that stands out as the biggest skills that have benefited you in your business?
Yeah, probably the mind and how complex the mind is, and thus what problems people are actually battling with. Like, where do people's problems actually stem? Like when someone gets home and they binge on junk food in the evening, is it just because they don't care? Is it just because they've got bad habits? Like, where did that stem from? And actually that's quite an intensive journey of questioning and coaching and listening to the client to get to the bottom of that. So effective communication and actually genuinely listening. Like when I was a young coach and I only had like a certain CV or skill set, I'd listen to the extent that it basically rung a bell in my knowledge bank, and I'd be like, oh, it's rung that bell. Like, here's the system or the plan or the whatever or the stretch that you do to solve that. and I didn't listen wider to the wider context of maybe why all this stuff is happening. And so, yeah, the mind and its complexities, and like truly listening to the problems of your clients.
So on that note, with the mindset stuff in particular, do you have any recommended resources like books or podcasts or courses that you would recommend to someone that wants to kind of delve into that a bit deeper?
Yeah, the courses that we recommend, so I run the BTN Academy, which is a nutrition education company. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a partners page, and we list a couple of partner education providers that we like in the kind of mindset counseling, psychotherapy space. But there's loads of really good books like Mindset by Carol Dweck. I've gone blank, but there's loads. You know, for me, and you asked me the question earlier, what's the best thing that you can do? It's like study to be your best self as an individual. And you're only ever going to do that through reading really good mindset books. And by reading those books, you're then inadvertently helping your clients because you're understanding yourself better, you're understanding problems better, you're understanding your hard wiring as an individual, which is really important. It's important from a business perspective, so you don't, you know, go down a 10-year career doing a job you don't like. So yeah.
Nice. So kind of on the same kind of path, but slightly different. Obviously your businesses, like I've known you for years and years and years. So I think I knew you maybe when BTN was quite young still. And I definitely knew you as you set up Awesome Supplements and all the other stuff that you're doing. And I've always seen that you've always had like quite a high level of success, in my opinion, when it comes to your businesses. So do you have any kind of investments that you can think of that have really stood out as the most beneficial, be that investing in yourself or investing in your business's development? Is there anything that you've kind of spent money on that has really powered you forwards?
I'm going to be honest, it's all of what you just mentioned. Like the only way to get successful, in my opinion, is to work hard, and then is to work smarter. And sometimes you work just as hard, but then sometimes you back off. It's like now I only work 6 hours a day because I kind of know what to work on and why, and that I have a team around me. So I get my business now is very different. But back in the day, I would be the guy working 14, 16 hours a day. But I loved it. Like I loved it. I loved the process of generating content, then going and training clients, then going in and working in a bar at night just to make sure I had enough bread on the table. So I started my first online business in 2008, and I didn't get my first client for like 6 months. And I was blogging every day, doing a video every day on Facebook, doing all this stuff that people do. But it took me a long time. But then I got to like the 3-year mark, and that snowball turned into a big snowball rolling down a hill. And then I was writing for Men's Health, speaking at Body Power, had lots of clients, and that's generally how business goes. You've got to dig in. But I invested on all fronts: reading, going on courses, CPD, working with people, networking, going to events, getting up at 3 a.m, driving to Birmingham, doing a speaking thing, then speaking to people, then going out. Like, you just got to get knee deep.
100%. I literally think all three of us have had that experience, specifically with Birmingham, having to leave at 3 a.m, get to Body Power, do something, and then spend loads of all the day drinking coffee and networking, and then going out in the evening with people trying to get more opportunities. So
it's a necessity though, isn't it? Like especially early on in your days, because even the most high ranking presenter that you could ever imagine, sort of very rarely does someone just ring them up and beg them to speak at an event when they've never done anything like that before. Or even if you're not interested in speaking in public, whether it's teaching courses or writing for magazines, or even if it's just having really high-end clients, it's like it doesn't just happen at the click of the fingers because you tell people that that's what you're doing. You have to take a lot of steps back and earn the right to get into that position. It took me like 10, 15 years. I'm still shit at it. But it took me a long time to even get close to being asked to do stuff like that. And one of the things that kind of gets to me a little bit is I notice it with younger generations, without sounding like an old fuddy-duddy, but there seems to be people have lost patience, because now, imagine I'm 40 in a year, so I've grown up in a different generation to someone who's 20. Someone who's now 20 years old, they've grown up with the internet forever, and they've grown up with technology being how it is now, to be able to communicate with friends. When I was at school, I had to remember someone's phone number to ring their house phone to ask their mum if they were going to come out to play, and then I had to walk around to their house. Now you can just send someone a WhatsApp message and put your headset on and game together from hundreds of miles away. Fantastic in some instances, but people tend to want things like so much more urgently, or expect things so much more urgently these days. And I just think patience and almost like learning to plant the seeds now, so that in 2-3 years time you can reap the rewards. And that seems to be of very little interest to someone who's grown up in the influencer generation, if that's even a thing. Probably isn't, but do you know what I mean? I just think some people don't seem to be as willing to put in enough effort for long enough to reap the rewards that they will get if they were more patient.
Agreed. I think something you touched on there, which is I think a lot of people, and I know this because a close friend of mine has done this recently. We were talking about business, and he was like, I won't go into detail, but he basically said, well, I don't need to do X, Y, and Z, because what if I just get one viral video and then that will be it? And I was like, well, that's not exactly a strategy, is it? That's not sound business advice. But I think a lot of people see, like the kid who wore the backpack and did the flossing thing, and overnight he became, he was sponsored by all these companies and he was making a load of money and stuff. I think people, the younger generation, see that these people they shoot to fame so quickly. There is no hard work. There is no journey. There's no 10, 15, 20-year kind of pushing the rock up the hill. It's just, I made one video, it went viral. So I think there's a little bit of delusion there, or misinformation as to how you get to where you want to be. But obviously none of us are about that stuff. So
right. It's fair play to those people who become overnight successes in any field. However, when you actually really talk to people who are successful, they'll usually tell you that their overnight success has taken 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's just that nobody saw it. Nobody saw that Ben Coomber was sat twiddling his thumbs for 3 years, waiting for a flow of clients and presentation slots to come along. But then all of a sudden you can go, oh, fuck me, look how much stuff he's doing. But you don't see the stuff that goes on for a long time beforehand that builds up to that success in inverted commas.
I suppose an interesting point to raise here is I'm of the assumption that the majority of people listening to this podcast are personal trainers, so they're coaches. And while we all use social media to kind of get clients and generate word of mouth around what we do, the best thing any trainer can do is go and be the best trainer that you can be. Like, forget about posting your lunch on your Instagram story. You're better off taking half an hour to walk around the gym floor and have 8 conversations with 8 random people, or going and build a great local network. And so many trainers that I speak to that are kind of struggling to really make their business work. And I'm like, well, what are you doing in terms of marketing? And everything's digital, but then their full service is non-digital. I'm like, it's going to take you 10 times longer to get a client on Instagram, unless you're already, a bit Instagram famous, than going and actually working and hustling in the gym. And that's why I think the baptism of fire of joining a big commercial gym is a good thing, because there's 3,000 clients under one roof. Like, why wouldn't you want that? And I remember when I finished university, I said to myself, I've got 2 months to make my business work, because I needed the money. Like, I was absolutely broke. And I joined a David Lloyd gym. And when the doors opened at 6 a.m. and when they closed at 10 p.m., I was on that gym floor talking to everyone that would literally have a conversation with me. And I was also clean, because actually cleaning gives you an opportunity to break the ice with people. Oh, do you mind if I just stand on this treadmill and, you know, whatever. And then you end up having a chat. But so many personal trainers like, oh, I'm not cleaners. I'm like, actually, it's a great way to get around the gym floor and break the ice. But I built my business up full time in 5 weeks. And not many trainers have, like, they don't do that. It's unheard of. But I was in the gym every hour because I was like, I've got to make my business work. I'm freaking skint. But it was purely a numbers game. I talked to everyone that would listen, and lo and behold, you know, I got some clients.
I'll tell you a story that's loosely connected to that. I used to, when I was a PT at Fitness First Peterborough, and I used to do some shifts, and then I'd hang around and do my PT, and I wasn't on shift, but I was still in the gym. I probably had like a 3-hour gap or something like that. And I was potting around in the lounge area, and the girl from reception came round, and there was three members of staff who were sitting in the lounge on their phones chatting. And she came out and she was like, guys, there's a couple have just walked in who would like to be shown around. They all looked at each other and were like, fuck, you do it, you do it, you do it. And I was like, I'll fucking do it. I'm not even on shift. So I walked round to the reception. There was a guy from Emmerdale and a girl from Hollyoaks who were a couple, and they were in like a play, like a pantomime that was touring, and it was in Peterborough for like 6 weeks. So they were like, we're here for like 6 weeks, and we need somewhere to train, both into our fitness. So I showed them around, gave them the tour of the gym, sorted them out a 6-week membership, and then I trained them probably 4 times a week, just for like little 20 minutes here and there in between my sessions. And then all of a sudden I'm the bloke in town who's training the Emmerdale bloke and the Hollyoaks bird, because the three people who were on shift, whose job was to do a tour, couldn't be asked to show a member around, a potential client around the gym. Stuff like that I've done for decades, working in gyms, just doing the appointments that nobody else could be asked to do. And it's amazing where a bit of I don't know, experience for one, but a little bit of financial success can be hidden where people least expect it.
That can be quite often. I love that story, Mark. It's awesome. And it can be the hard question to ask when a trainer's sat in front of you asking for advice, and you kind of just simply say, how hard have you really tried? It's like another example. I wanted to get my podcast more widely known, and I was going to Body Power. Wasn't even speaking that year at Body Power. It was 2012. And I followed James Haskell round, holding his coffee for 90 minutes, badgering him about, you know, my podcast and who I was and all the rest of it. And in the end, he said yes, just so he could get me to piss off. But I went back next day and I'm like, James, I've got my diary with me. Can I book you in for the podcast? And he's like, oh, I said yes, didn't I? So then a week later, I'm speaking to James Haskell, an England international rugby player, purely because I spent 90 minutes like a little gerbil on his heels, holding his coffee, bugging him. But I worked hard for it. I just didn't say no. And, you know, I just think to reach something, to do something, to get more clients, just skin in the game, get a shift in.
Makes a lot of sense. So going back to the questions for that I've got written down here, do you have any, we've spoken about the top skills, the best investments, the resources that you recommend, but do you have any regrets that stand out with your business just in the past, you know, however long? Is there anything that really stands out that you would change?
Probably that I didn't lean into the public speaking even sooner. Like, I realized it was a good skill set of mine, and I would have liked to have made it even more big of a core part of my business, especially when I was younger and the travel was okay. Like, you know, you reach a certain age and 4 days a week, you don't want to be getting up at 4 a.m. to drive to Liverpool to do a talk. So, and this is why I'm so passionate about self-development and realizing what you're really good at, is you get to lean into what you're good at sooner in your career. There's nothing worse than getting to 35 and being like, I've just worked it out. I'm like, let's work that out as early as humanly possible so you can enjoy every bit of your career. So yeah, just sort of letting go of old ways of thinking and what you think you're good at sooner to do what you are really good at.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot of personal trainers that stick to their, right, I'm gonna be a PT, I'm gonna do this, X, Y, and Z, and they stick with that until they realize, and something gives them a kick up the arse, like COVID, to say there are different ways of doing things. And that makes a lot of sense. Mark, have you got any questions for Ben?
Yeah, I've got a few. On that note, Ben, like the self-development, personal development, all that sort of stuff, could you talk to me about Tony Robbins? Because I'm right in thinking you've been over and attended one of his events in person. Is that right?
Yes.
And could you just enlighten me? Because I'm quite stubborn, and he's somebody that I am aware of, obviously, but I kind of don't go out of my way to listen to him because I'm a stubborn bastard. So what am I missing? What am I missing out on? And how did he help you? And how was he beneficial for you and your business?
So I'm kind of the belief that sometimes you need to be smacked in the face with different opinions and beliefs and approaches to kind of sometimes realize things. And sometimes this happens through major life events or whatever. I've been reading sort of Tony Robbins' books for a while. He's a great writer. He's got some amazing books out there. And a client of mine kept saying, you should go to one of his events. And I was like, nah, I'm not really up for this, jumping around and hoo-ha, and just don't really like the American energy. And in the end, she got me a PR ticket. And that meant all I had to do was pay for my flights and my accommodation. So I was like, okay, instead of $2,500, this is now $1,000. Okay, I'll pay that. I'll go and listen. And, on some levels, it kind of changed my life, but it opened myself up to, again, different ways of thinking, different ways of approaching things. The level and the kind of severity and depth of like change for some people. Like some people are so resistant to change, and we're personal trainers, like we're coaches, we're helping people every day change, and actually seeing what it takes to help some people change was like a real eye-opener. It also started me on a deeper path of self-development of like, what really makes me tick? What really are my skill sets? What do I really value in my life? So from that perspective, I would still not go back and probably do a similar event, but I would find a similar event that I like the kind of energy, because I still don't really like the kind of jump around and hoo-ha, but it did open my eyes up to things, and I appreciate why it works for a lot of people, and it still had a very positive impact on my self-development.
So what was the quick wins that you took from it? Like, what did you implement, or what did you change immediately after?
Probably the level and depth that I was happy to speak to other people about my emotions and what had happened in my past and the things that had shaped me as a person. So I remember on the second day, the person that I was sitting next to, like, she was able to get really under the skin of me, and she called me out on a lot of bullshit that I was telling her and telling myself. So after that point in time, I was way more of an open book myself. And also it really went into like what I value as a person, like, because at the time I was working really hard to build what I was building in the fitness industry. And I was kind of like 70% on the right train tracks. And it kind of brought me like more 100% on train tracks. So I was able to get in touch with my truth a lot more, what I valued, and make a lot better decisions. And I knew I was making bad decisions because at the time I was going through being close to being bankrupt. So the kind of event came at a time where it actually kind of picked me up quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an easy thing to do, isn't it? To sort of tell yourself a little lie about yourself, and then 10 years later you find yourself talking about that as if it was true, and you can believe your own bullshit quite easily, and it must be true because I'm sure it is. It's in my head, but actually, like, there's probably a lot of people that do the same. I notice it in myself. I've probably in the last 3 or 4 years, I've become a lot more aware of it. And so why the fuck am I still fabricating some story that's making me think that I'm impressing other people by telling it that way, when it's not probably what happened? I'm just kind of convincing myself of something that is either a fabrication of the truth or an outright lie. There's a lot of people, I think, struggle to be brave enough to go back and actually call themselves out on that.
Definitely. And culturally, we've just not been brought up with that being the norm, you know. But to move forward in the most positive way, it has to become a cultural norm. It has to become a personal norm.
Yeah. Good stuff. Mate, business perspective. So we've touched on a lot of sort of like personal, intrinsic development stuff. From a business perspective, and looking at what personal trainers are, generally speaking, what they're doing wrong, what they could do better. And something that I alluded to earlier was the ridiculously high churn rate, the amount of numbers of people that enter the industry and then leave very quickly, probably not because they hate wearing their PE kit to work every day or working in gyms and stuff like that. There will be reasons. The main reason, I think, will be because they don't earn enough money to live the lifestyle that they would like to lead. What do you see as the biggest errors that personal trainers are making, and what could they do to reverse that?
Biggest error is selling something that people don't want to buy, or is not packaged in a way that the client doesn't understand what the outcome is that they'll get. So if you went into a personal trainer's gym, and I know my local DW has got all the posters on the wall, level 3 this, level 4 that, I specialize in this. And most personal trainers' flyers and information are trying to sell personal training. Most clients don't want to buy personal training. They want to purchase an individual that has a skill set that can lead them to dropping 2 dress sizes, or feeling better about themselves, or, you know, getting lean and muscular, whatever it is. So when we look at kind of the world of fitness business and we see what works, like we all throw stones at Herbalife, Weight Watchers, F45, all these concepts which have packaged fitness in a way that people actually want to buy it. And we need to take lessons from that. So rather than selling a block of 10 personal training, which has no defined outcome, why don't you sell a 12-week lean and fit transformation? So at least the client goes, right, I'm paying £400 spread over 3 months. And I'm going to get 3 group PT sessions with 4 people. I'm going to get a diet plan. I'm going to get made accountable. I can see the before and afters. They're going to do a movement assessment on me. And already there's like a price, a defined package, and a defined outcome. It's so much easier to sell that because there's a timeline against it. There's an outcome, etc. So most of the work that I've done to help PTs with their businesses in the past has been like, package your service, package it in a way where people want to buy it. And yes, you can focus just on classes or one-to-one or semi-private. All these models work and all these models can be profitable, but they have to be packaged in a way that people actually want to buy it. Because most people, when they go, oh, you know, do you want to buy personal training? And they kind of get a blank face. It's like, no, want to drop 2 dress sizes? Does your personal training fix that? Oh, yeah. How many sessions do I have to have? Oh, and then already it's like blah, blah, blah. And you're blubbing your way through a sale. Defined package, defined price, defined set of benefits, defined outcome.
Easy peasy. In terms of price, that's, some people will be okay with this, but I think a lot of people will struggle and will probably undersell themselves. And I'd imagine, like, connecting this to what you just said, it will be because they're probably undervaluing what they can provide to the client. So in terms of setting a price, how do they go about ensuring that it's the right price, A, for the customer who's happy that they're getting value for it, and B, for the PT to ensure that it's good, it's fair for the amount of time they're investing?
Sure. So I'll give my piece, and I'm sure you both have some really good wisdom here. Most personal trainers value themselves, but ultimately the value is in the client's perception of what they're buying. So if I say to a client, I charge £50 an hour, they have to then value that against what they know about me, my past results, what I'm advertising, etc. So when you're looking at your service, you have to say to yourself, okay, what am I selling? And what is maybe traditionally sold at this price? But also, are there people that will pay £40 an hour for a personal training session? The answer would be yes. £50 an hour, answer would be yes. £60 an hour, answer would be yes. And as we go up, there's obviously fewer and fewer people. But we have to build our business on essentially the level of result that we can get for an individual, how we're going to package that, and whether we can find those people that are willing to pay that price. So if I went and was a personal trainer, I'd probably work as a personal trainer for £70. I'd probably charge about £70 an hour, or build my business so that I was charging that. But I wouldn't work where I am. I'd go over the other side of town, because I know that there's about twice as much money over the other side of town than where I live. And I'd go over there and I'd probably work 5 hours a day. And then I'd package it in a way where I could earn £70 for 5 hours a day, and then I'd be job done. But it's amazing what you can charge for your service when you have the results to back it up. You have the pedigree to back it up, and you stand there and you look square in someone else's eyes and you say it with confidence. Whereas most people don't do that. They're like, oh, well, it's usually £35 an hour, but I quite often do it for 30. And already you're just backtracking. When you're backtracking, the client's going to try and see how far they can backtrack you. But when I talk to people, so right now, if I ever give my time away, it's £90 an hour. And I say to people straight up, it's £90 an hour. You get this. And that's it. It's the end of conversation. I say it with confidence. I believe in my ability, and I've got a track record of results. And 99% of the time people pay for it because I've already set up this kind of brand and persona that I might be a little bit expensive because of what I can do and help people with. So quite often it's, again, looking at what you can package, the value against it, and having real confidence in that sales conversation with someone.
And I suppose in there somewhere as well, there's a sort of sliding scale of having too much confidence and not enough competence, and then having maybe too much competence and not enough confidence. There's sort of finding that sweet spot between all of those different sort of parts of the of what you just talked about. You'll get people who got the gift of the gab, but they've only been in the game for 10 minutes and they won't have the pedigree, the experience, the results that they can demonstrate. So early on, they might have to charge less to be able to get more business to do to gain those results, so that then they earn the right to earn more money further down the line.
Totally. You've definitely got to earn the right to put your prices up, 100%. If I'm fresh out of PT school, I'm probably charging £20-25 an hour. But as soon as I've got a track record and I can stand confidently, I'm putting that up to 35, 40. And then again, the question process that I would ask a trainer is, what are you charging now? And let's say trainer says £35 an hour. And I would then say, okay, do you think you can get results and provide enough value to a client to charge £40 an hour? And most trainers that are thinking about it would usually answer yes. And then I'll say, okay, so what's stopping you from doing it? And for most people, it's just the fear of someone saying no. So people shy away from rejection. And I'm like, actually, you want a few people to say no, because the chances are you don't want to keep working more and more. Like, there's at some point you probably want to work less. So instead of doing 35 hours a week at £35 an hour, how about we try and do 30 hours a week at £40 an hour? You'll be earning the same, but working 5 hours less. So actually, you probably want to force that kind of tipping point to happen with your clients. And most people, honestly, if they're to ask themselves, like, do you think you can charge more for your service? Most trainers end up saying yes. And they've already been thinking about putting their prices up for a while. It's just a fear thing.
So on that note, that ties us in with something else I wanted to mention, which is when people have these like limiting beliefs in what they're capable of. So let's say in this analogy, a PT is charging £25 an hour, but if we drill down to them, they probably think they're worth 40, but they might think that they can't put their price up to 40 because they'll lose all of their business. How much of that is their sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy? How much are they limiting their own progress by doubting that the change would have a positive outcome?
Well, as you say, they are limiting themselves straight away because the action will never happen. Like if they believe that it will always play out in that way, they will always stay at £25 an hour. So like, yeah, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
What could they do to change the way they approach the situation?
Well, I think every situation has to be tested, so you have confidence in what you're testing can work. So I always recommend it through like an official like document that you might send to a client and then speak to them about it in person. So if I was a personal trainer and I was charging £25 an hour, I might write a letter to my clients and say, hey, Tracy, hey, Kev, hey, whatever. I'm putting my prices as of, and let's say it's October the 1st today. As of January the 1st, 2021, I'm putting my prices up to £30 an hour. I'm doing this because I've been doing a lot of CPD this year. I feel I'm really adding value to all of my clients. I've also been restructuring things and I think I'm a bit more efficient. I think you're all enjoying my service. I'm also going to cut down my hours a little bit and this will help me streamline my business. If this is a problem for you, I'd love to have a chat about it, but it will come into effect in 2 months' time. And then when you see them in person, you're like, hey, Tracy, remember I sent you that letter? Is there any kind of issues? Do you want to talk about anything? And, you know, hopefully 90% of your clients, because you're doing a great job, are like, no, it's absolutely fine. Like, I'm really happy with that. And obviously you want to make sure that you are still delivering a good service. If anything, you want to just edge your service up ever so slightly. So people, you know, even if they're questioning it, they're like, oh, actually, Ben's really pulling out the stops here. Like, I'm getting great results. He's holding me accountable. I'm really happy with his service. And then hopefully there is maybe 2 or 3 drop-offs. And then because you've done it once, when you feel it's appropriate to do it again, you can look at the history of this situation and go, well, I did it a year ago and it kind of worked. So I'm going to confidently take that step of putting my prices up to £33 an hour or whatever.
I suppose the important caveat there is that people will vote with their feet, won't they? If you're delivering a subpar service and you're trying to put your prices up, people won't be impressed. Nope. If you are doing as good a job as you think you are, then creeping your prices up isn't going to make a bigger difference at all because people they'll be fine with it.
So let's now flip this on the head. Before we started this conversation, we talked about selling your services as a package. And I want trainers to go away and do this because it's so much easier to sell it. If you stand in front of someone and say, I charge £40 an hour, they've then got to start to weigh up what they're going to get for that £40 an hour, potentially 2 times a week. But if I've built this package that's £400 over the course of 12 months, I've gone away and done all the maths on my own finances and how this package needs to look for me to work 30 hours a week and on average get £40 in. But on the front end, the client is just buying a £400 package where they're getting 3 sessions a week, they're getting a diet plan, they're getting a community support, they're getting all of this stuff. So rather than, you know, putting your prices up per hour and having to justify that, you're merely tweaking your package and seeing if someone wants to pay £400 for a 12-week plan to get said outcome. And it makes it so much easier. And they're not even seeing quite often this price increase. And this is a good book. If anyone would like to read it, there's a book called Oversubscribe by Daniel Priestley. And he talks about having enough demand in your system where you're getting basically people to queue up to the door. And there's various techniques that you can use where if you're having a conversation with someone on the gym floor, you're like, do you know what? I'm starting my next 12-week transformation in 2 weeks' time. If you'd like to get on board, you've got a week to let me know, because 80% of all my current clients are going over to my new 12-week. They're carrying on. So already that person's sitting there going, fuck, like 80% of their clients is going over. And it might be a white lie. It might be a complete lie, but at least you're making the client think, oh, actually, I need to kind of like lock this in. So you're now attaching a little bit of urgency there. And they're like, okay, so now they're standing there thinking, oh, you know, am I going to pay this £400 for this next 12 weeks to get this kind of thing? And then obviously you can support that with, you know, before and after. So yeah, package your services, sell packages, people buy it.
Happy days, mate. That's covered all the bits and pieces that I wanted to cover, and a few tangents as well. Josh, have you got anything left?
I have 2 final questions for you, Ben.
You may ask them.
So, Ben, if you can tell us, because obviously I know there's a little bit of like business secrecy in the fitness industry and everyone's everyone else's enemy, but what is next for Ben Coomber? What's your plan?
I'm going to keep growing what I've got. So we're going to keep trying to have an impact with educating trainers in the field of nutrition with the BTN Academy. So we're now talking with education providers in China, India, the UAE to look to license our courses throughout other parts of the world. So I want to have a bigger impact on training people. The supplement company's going very well. Again, we're now trying to launch into new markets internationally. I want to be writing more books. That's where I feel my calling is now. I want to lean into that, and I want to be authoring a lot more books, because I personally feel books can change your life. Like, you read the right kind of book and it can have a massive, massive impact on you. So I want to join that kind of clan. And then that's kind of it. Like, for now, that's it. And things will come up, things will evolve, but I'm very focused in on just delivering that.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I think for me, obviously, because I run education as well, I think for you to move into the markets of China, the UAE, etc., that would be absolutely massive for you. And I hope it goes really well. I really do, because I love what you do. And I think that more trainers should be exposed to Ben Coomber. That sounded better in my head. So my final question.
I've been exposed to Ben Coomber in a hotel room, and it's not all you would expect it to be. It was on fuck as well.
No comment.
So Ben, my final question: if people want to get hold of you and they want to get in touch and see what you do, where are the best places for them to go, or to contact you?
If you're listening to this, then I can imagine you like podcasts. You're welcome to have a listen to mine, Ben Coomber Radio. Otherwise, I'm Ben Coomber on the internet. My book, How to Be an Awesome Personal Trainer, is on Amazon. And if you want to consider nutrition education in the future, then go to btn.academy.
And what about the supplements as well?
You are welcome to come and have a little look at that. It's called awesomesupplements.co.uk.
And just as a bit of a shameless plug, I when lockdown first started, I bought, I think it was 3 or 4 months of the Daily Dose, the fish oils combo, the health combo. And I've been taking that now solidly for, I think, probably 9 or 10 months now. And I love it. I recommend it to everyone.
Oh, cheers, babe.
I got you, man. Okay.
Right, let's lower the tone. It's time to mass debate. Benjamin, so I have a load of words and terms and industry bits and pieces. I'm going to pull one out at random, and then you and Josh are going to debate. One of you for, one of you against. You got 60 seconds each. It's all tongue in cheek. It's fairly laid back. It's off the cuff, and it might be mildly amusing. I just need you to choose a hand, please. Left or right?
Left.
Ha. You've fallen into the trap, the fake trap that I'd set. That is Herbalife Juice Plus etc. So basically, shoddy pyramid scheme snake oil salesman is the topic of debate, and too many people got in touch to request to hear you arguing for the above. So we've had to fiddle it slightly, but it was a 50-50 and you picked the right hand. Well, you picked the left hand, which was the one it was in. So Josh is going to be arguing against all of those aforementioned products. And then Ben will be telling us why he is such an avid supporter.
Okay. Am I going first?
You want to go first?
I'm easy.
Okay. So when you're ready then, Joshua, please masturbate.
I can't believe I'm masturbating with you two. So, okay, Herbalife Juice Plus multi-level marketing, in my opinion, is the lowest of the low in the fitness industry. So first of all, the people selling the products have no education. They have no, generally speaking, they have no skills when it comes to educating clients about long-term change or behavior change. And they are selling what is the equivalent of gravel mixed with some sand, cheap products that are intentionally overpriced to make sure that the thousands of people above them make their 30p per product. And they are oversold at a ridiculous price. The other problem is because the products are so cheap, the ingredients are dog shite. And I've got 10 seconds left. So my biggest problem is a quick fix. People aren't educated as to what to do after they've had diarrhea for 12 weeks and then they go back to their old habits.
Ben, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Tell him why they're so brilliant.
The reason why it's brilliant is everyone wants to look up to an aspirational lifestyle. And when people see people at the top of the chain driving a car because of the things that they've sold, or they see Ronaldo taking the shape, they aspire to that business model. So it's a very effective business model. If you look at American history, it's also quoted that these schemes are the most effective business model because they work on personal relationships, and personal relationships are powerful. And it's easy to sell these products because these days people do not think critically. People do not assess what's in their products, how effective they are, what's the price in the market. So people fall into it, they get gullible, they buy all this stuff because they look up to all these amazing people that are driving cars and doing Ronaldo. And that's why it's one of the most successful business models. Let's not really talk about the products because people don't care. They're just aspiring for something bigger and better in their lives.
Sorry, mate, but you're wrong.
Lol.
That was good. You both did all right there. The people can decide who they believe. And on a more serious note, Ben, you didn't really mean all of that, did you?
There's a lot of truth in it, and
there was some truth in it, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying I support it. That's why I don't run a multi-level marketing company, but the truth is the truth.
Also, can we just remember that you did do a video with a sledgehammer smashing a tub of Herbalife, which I really enjoyed. I think there should be more of those. I think I should link to it in the show notes personally, which I probably would do.
So old, that video now. It's like filmed on the first ever Nokia 3310, mobile camera phone.
Oh man,
showing your age now. Right, Benjamin, I do believe you have got 3 statements which you have prepared. Have you got them?
I have, yeah.
Cool, you worried me there with that blank face. I thought you'd forgotten. If you could read all 3 statements out, try and keep your best poker face on, and then me and Josh are going to try and decide who is the winner. I can't remember what the score is, Josh, but I know I'm ahead.
You're definitely ahead. I think I've only got like 2 out of the 7 so far.
I've only got 1 wrong. So, Ben, you need to convince me. Right, off you go.
Statement 1. I once got sexually harassed and mobbed by 2 lady boys on the back of a moped on a night out in Indonesia. Statement number 2. I once got knocked out by Johnny Nelson, famous boxer, in a bar for saying his chat on Sky TV was better than his boxing. Statement number 3. I once kissed Martin McDonald at an after party at Body Power in 2017.
I was at that after party and I didn't see you kiss Martin McDonald. I'm going to say false on that one because I'm pretty sure you both kept your distance. I'm going to go false on the third one. Number 2, did Johnny Nelson knock you out? I think Johnny Nelson threatened to knock you out because you were giving him some chat, but I don't think he actually did. So therefore, I think you paid quite handsomely to be molested by the ladyboys in Indonesia or whatever number 1 was. I think that is going to be the true one, and I think the other 2 are false. Josh?
See, I like all 3 of them. I do. The annoying thing is, this is the problem, right? Is whenever I go second, if I agree with you, then it seems like I'm just hanging on to what you say. So I have to say something different.
What you're saying is you want all 3 to be true?
Definitely.
That would be phenomenal. And if that could all be in like the same night as well, like in one great big bender.
I was thinking you got knocked out by the boxer for kissing Martin McDonald whilst being molested by ladyboys. Maybe. Okay.
Is that what you're going for option 4, all 3 at once?
So I think I'm going to go with number 2 as being true, the boxing one.
You can copy me if you like, Josh.
It's okay. I need to be true to myself, you know. I think number 2. Ben, put us out of our misery. What was it?
It is number 1. Mark's right. I probably told the story to Mark before as we were having some beers one night, which we've done on many occasions. Yeah, I was walking home in just a pair of board shorts and they jumped off the back of the moped and pinned me up against the wall and said lots of sort of stereotypical, I love you long time type kind of comments, and pulled my shorts down, tried to get the money out of my pockets, didn't have any money. I was absolutely broke. And then they chased me into my hotel room. I got pinned against the wall and there was a few goings on.
Crazy. I haven't heard that story before, by the way.
Oh.
I haven't heard that one before. It was just a good guess. What about number 2 and number 3 then? Is there any mild elements of truth, or were they just made up out of thin air?
Made up out of thin air.
Wow. Very creative, Ben.
So I think what we need to do is maybe have a separate episode in the future where we just discuss the ladyboy issue in more detail. I think because you said there were some goings on, and that to me is too vague. So I think we need like a detailed dissection of that incident personally. Okay, so the next bit that we're going to do for the podcast is we have a personal trainer called Jessie that wants to ask you some questions. So we're going to bring her in live because, you know, we've got the production values of a high-end TV show, so we can do stuff like that, you know.
What can possibly go wrong?
Well, like last time, which went horrendously wrong, but we don't talk about that. So I'll just add her in now.
What I mean by last way, just to reiterate, is not the last time someone came on, because Shane did a good job, but the last time we tried to bring someone in and it was a complete shit show, so we had to cut it all out. But here she is. Morning, Jessie.
Good morning.
Hi, Jessie.
You all right?
Yeah, you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So, Jessie, I believe you've got some questions for Ben that you'd like to ask.
Well, it's a question, but there's endless possibilities of answers, really. It's quite open-ended, I guess. So, obviously, we were in touch, and obviously you've become a dad fairly recently. Whereas Ivy's quite old now, isn't she, in terms of new baby, and yourself, Mark, and obviously having kids changes your life loads. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. And what I'd like to know is, has that changed the way you think about what you might want to do in the future? what you're doing now in terms of work, where your visions lie, be it stemming from actually having a child and that child bringing inspiration into your life just by having a child and changing your perspective on things, or it could be driven by things like financial security or like job security. Obviously, we're in a time where things are changing quite rapidly. The industry isn't, that lucrative in some respects. And I know that both of you have been on different journeys, from like whether it's presenting at or organising conferences, and Mark, you've opened a gym, and Ben, your business has taken loads of changes in different directions. And how have you had to adapt to these, and where do you see yourself growing, and did you have fixed ideas about how you were going to do things and you've had to change to a different kind of mindset, I guess, more of a growth mindset to expand out a little bit, or maybe narrow down a bit?
Sure. Good question. In a practical sense, I'd like to think that I was very well organized. Like, when your wife gets pregnant, you've got essentially 7, 8, 9 months to plan, like what's going to happen. So I brought all the things into play that my business needed for me to not be around as much. So if I only had to work 2 hours a day, then I could do that. Like, that wouldn't have been a problem. If I could work more, then I saw that as a bonus to myself and the business. Obviously, I'm not a personal trainer anymore, so my business is extremely different to a lot of the people that are listening to this. I've got 8 full-time staff, and they all know what they're doing. They're all competent. I took the first 6 months of Ivy being around to just kind of like cruise a bit and just sort of not put too much pressure on myself, because I think it's easy to do that. The thing that I didn't really ever appreciate is how it would add like that emotional burden to you, of like having to always think about, this child that is relying on you, despite the fact that, my wife is at home sort of being largely the carer. So I didn't kind of account for how I'd feel. You're constantly focusing, and it was kind of just like a new level of adaptability. But coming out of like the 5-6 month mark, it made me like next level ambitious. It just gave that next reason to say, okay, cool. What are you going to do next? Like, how are you going to leverage your time the most? How are you going to impact your world, the world the most? How are you going to create more financial security for you and your family? So it just fired me up even more.
Would you say that was, would you say that you've had to make some hard decisions about what you want to do in the future, like drop things that you thought were something that you were going to do before?
Yeah, and I think that's only been a good thing, because most people that go self-employed or end up running a business end up usually trying to do a bit too much. And I think that's been a blessing in disguise for me. So we've really focused down, and we're doing really well through just focusing on key things. So now my ambitions for next year is to write books, is to teach, and run my business. That's it. Like, they're my only 3 jobs.
And what would you say in terms of, were there things before that you realise now that you didn't actually enjoy or like, and having a child has made you look at those things differently?
I don't know. I think maybe no is my answer. It's probably a little bit skewed because everything is quite intense at the moment, because we're still in lockdown, and like, so every day is kind of the same. Like, I get up, I have Ivy for 3 hours. So I'm going to say I don't know, if I'm honest.
Your working day is a lot shorter now, isn't it? Am I right in saying that?
It is a bit, yeah. I generally work about 8 till 4 with a couple of breaks.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people listening to this, who do work in the industry, working at that sort of getting up at 5 in the morning and finishing at 10 o'clock at night type of thing. I think some people probably will need to hear that, especially if they are trying to build a business and have children on the way, for example, or are the main breadwinners. It's a hard I think it's a hard thing if you are the main breadwinner in this industry at this point in time. It's kind of, I think for a lot of people, to rein it in a bit would be a really hard decision to make.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I suppose I'm always going to have a skewed perspective because I'm a lifelong planner. Like, I made the decision of when I wanted to have kids, where I wanted to be in my life. My wife was fully aligned with me. So like, if you make the decision to start a business, go into the personal training industry when having really young kids, that's going to be stressful. Like, there's just no way around that. It's going to stretch you really thinly. So I would maybe even question if it's the right decision and say, maybe start that next year. Like, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because ultimately everyone wants to enjoy their kids growing up. But that's just my perspective, and people, you know, are free to live their own lives. But I only wanted to have kids when I was ready, like financially and emotionally.
Fair enough. What about you, Mark?
Probably slightly different. When Molly came along, I was sort of like, I was very naive in that, you know, like when someone says, do you want to speak at this conference, or do you want to do this thing? And you'd be like, oh yeah, I'll do that. That would be a good idea. And then you just kind of like forget about it and leave it. And then all of a sudden someone's like, right, you're on in 5 minutes. You're like, oh fuck, is that actually happening? Like, really? Shit. Maybe I should have taken it a bit more seriously. So I, as those who would know me would expect, I had kind of just been like, we'll just rock up, see what happens when she gets here, and I'm sure it'll be all right. And without sounding too selfish about this, but when the lockdown came along, it couldn't have been better, because I was in a position whereby I was working 8 till 8 every day, keeping the facility alive, probably doing 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Then when I get home at 8, 9 o'clock, I've got to reply to like emails and deal with marketing stuff and inquiries and stuff like that. So there's all my admin has to be done in the evening. Dog needed walking before and after I'd finished work. So there was almost like I was not in a very, very good position at all. And had the lockdown not come along, I would have carried on trying to work harder to think that was going to solve the problems, if that makes sense. So the fact that then the rug was pulled out from under my feet within about 3 days of lockdown, I was like, how the fuck am I ever going to go back to work? Because of all the stuff that I was missing, the time that I was missing, and the lack of support that I was offering, it couldn't have been better. Hence the reason. I mean, when the first lockdown started, Molly was probably 4 months old, like 20 weeks, something like that, 4.5 months. So we were very lucky that up until that point, she literally slept from 9 till 9 without even barely like waking up for a murmur during the night. We were really, really lucky. So the bit that I was at home, she was asleep for. And then when I was out of the house, she was just a complete nightmare. Poor Natasha was struggling. So within about 3 days of being home all day, every day from the lockdown, I sort of was thinking, there's no way I can go back to living that life before. So in terms of like part of your question about the change of direction, I made the decision very, very quickly that I wasn't going to go back to full-time face-to-face coaching where I have to be in a set time, in a set location at a set time. I also had probably 6 months off. I didn't barely touch social media. I barely replied to messages or emails or anything like that. I ignored work almost completely, and I had 6 months at home just repairing and rebuilding those relationships. It's the best 6 months that I've ever had, honestly. So you go from, as a 4-month-old baby, she couldn't even sit up and hold herself up, yet by the time the first lockdown had finished, she could walk and like had a personality and a sense of humor and stuff like that. And had that not have happened, I would have missed all of that stuff. So I don't know what the moral of that story is, other than I was a fucking idiot to think that things would just fall into place. It feels a little bit odd talking about how positive the lockdown was, because obviously so many people went through so much pain and discomfort and like grieving and stuff like that. But from a purely selfish perspective, it massively changed my in immediate short term. It changed my my way of working, and so now I work from home full time. I don't travel. I don't move around. I've put myself into a position whereby I can take on like contracts and employment with companies that allow me to work at a distance. So it's been an interesting year, to be honest, and I'm not quite as much of a selfish dick as I used to be.
I think there's definitely a moral there's a combined moral there for both of you, same but different, is that you've both changed in terms of, like, you can both see that obviously you can't get that time back when you have young kids. So it's just, and there are more important things to life than working your nuts off, so to speak.
Absolutely. I used to fall into the trap of being busy for the sake of being busy, and thinking that like the I need to do more to make the busyness stop. So if I take on more stuff, it'll make things easier, but it doesn't. It just adds to the workload. So and it's very difficult. When I talk to people, it's funny because I spend all of my time talking to clients or when I'm coaching clients about kind of if they can't see the wood for the trees, or that you need to sometimes take a couple of steps back and then move around an obstacle. And sometimes when you're immersed in like a certain way of living, you have no idea that you're in the situation that you are. It's very, very difficult sometimes. And I'm sure there'll be other people that find themselves in a similar boat where they're busy doing stuff, but they're probably not actually, they're working hard, but not necessarily working smart.
Yeah. So from my perspective, if there's a personal trainer listening to this and they have kids or they're thinking of having kids, I would still approach it in the same way. So if my wife said to me, right, we're 2 months pregnant, like in 7 months, we've got a child coming along, and I was a personal trainer working 55 hours a week, starting at 5 a.m. and going home at 8 o'clock at night, I straight away go, I've got to change something, because I cannot physically work like this and look after a child. So, I mentor trainers now and again, and they'll say, like, I'm doing 55 hours in the gym in the week. I don't know how to do this. I don't do that. And I'm like, why are you working 55 hours? Oh, well, I have to work that much because I'm only charging £22 an hour on average for my packages. And I'm like, well, could you charge more? Could you streamline your time? Could you find clients that could work, some of those unsociable hours? It's like, there's always a way, but we slip into the industry norms. Like, it's normal for a trainer to get up on a 5 a.m. Monday morning and go home at 9 o'clock on a Monday night. Just because that's a norm, it doesn't mean you can't do different. Like, if you were a parent and you wanted to be at home more, could you find clients that were more inclined to train during the day? Yes, there's not as many of them, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. So for me, it's all about, business planning. And if there's one skill that is lacking quite a bit and has done historically in the fitness industry, is the business planning side of it. It's actually running your personal training business like a business and not being controlled by it, not being controlled by your clients, not having WhatsApps coming in at 9 o'clock at night saying, oh, should I eat lasagna tonight? Or should I have, spaghetti? Like, what's better? What's worse? So we're all in control of that, but we've got to see it and take control.
Very nice.
Oh yeah, well, I don't take clients after school hours. Like, I only have clients during school hours. So when the kids are at school, like, and if I'm quite strict about it. If that's just the way it is, unfortunately, because they've got things to do after school. I've got dinner to cook, all that sort of boring stuff. But yeah, you can't get that time back. And similarly, I see patterns the same. I had a job before I became a personal trainer, and I worked all over the world. And when I got pregnant, I was like, I can't do this when I've got when I have a kid, I can't just get a nanny and just travel and just do this. So that's why I became a personal trainer. And that was a bit naive, really, but yeah, it's all lessons to be learned. Cool.
Josh, your little one's 8 months old as well. Ben, how old's Ivy? 7 months? 7 months. So you two are both very, very, very similar timing.
Yeah.
What did you notice any changes in your habits?
Well, I've actually got 2 kids. So I've got a 10-year-old and I've got an 8-month-old. So I'm an OG. I'm the original gangster for business planning. So when I set up PT Toolbox and Southend PT Academy, the whole purpose of me setting up those businesses went like in the initial phases was so that number one, my hours would always completely be dependent on my kids. So for example, at the moment, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays, I only work from 9 till 2 because I do the school run both ways. So I drop off and pick up. And then both businesses as well rely on me very, very minimally physically. So I don't have to physically be in any location. I can work from a laptop or a phone or whatever. So the businesses if I was completely removed from the equation, both businesses would still run without me, which is, when my son was born, I took off. Obviously we had lockdown as well, which helped, but I took off, I think it was 3 or 4 months where things just ticked over. And there was the occasional WhatsApp message that I answered and stuff like that because I can't resist. But yeah, I think what Ben said really, I really agree with, which is if you plan it from the beginning, then you can set up the business however you want. I think people are so scared of saying to clients, well, I only work this time or I only do this because they think, oh, I'm going to lose the clients. But again, as Ben said, there's so many people out there that potentially want to train with you. And if you have set rules and you have the systems to support those rules, then there's no reason why you can't work however you want. And I don't want to sound like a guru, the laptop beach lifestyle, but you can do stuff that's similar to that, I think it's just going about it the right way.
It sounds there like you and Ben are quite similar. And I would probably suggest, looking at this from my perspective, is that you two are probably businessmen who have dabbled with a bit of personal training, whereas I am a moron who does some personal training and is trying to run a business and coming at it from the wrong way. And there's nothing wrong with being either side, but if you've got your business head screwed on firmly, then you can apply that to anything. And like you say, having systems in place, having people that you can delegate to, all that sort of stuff. And I've always been, that's been my Achilles heel forever. I've been very, 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 what's the word? I've tried to do it all myself, and from time to time, I've probably not, I've put my eggs in the wrong baskets from time to time, if that makes sense. But this last year has been a massive, massive lesson to switch things around and think things differently, which is proving to be more fruitful already. And I tend to find, I think more often than not, most fitness professionals or most personal trainers will probably be in my camp rather than in your camp, if that makes sense. Hence the reason there's such a high churn rate. Hence the reason so many people fail so easily and so quickly, because they love doing PE at school, so therefore going to be a personal trainer, rather than I'm really on top of how to keep my own accounts, how to run a business, marketing, sales, generating leads, all of that stuff. And I'm going to apply that to an industry that I've got an interest in and turn it into a successful career. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah. I think it's really important in any career path to lean into your skill set. So I started off in my career, the first 5 years were sort of personal training interspersed with some other stuff. And then I sort of fell into public speaking by accident. I got asked to do a talk by UK Tennis when I was at university. And I remember just being thrust into a room of 20 mums and kids all wanting sports nutrition expertise. And I just had a whiteboard and I just went for it. And 90 minutes later, all the mums stood up and were like, oh, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. And I kind of realized a new skill set for myself. And then I was juggling public speaking and personal training. And then the online world was happening. And kind of like you, Mark, I was juggling 5 different jobs. And then there's just a point where you have to say to yourself, what am I really good at? Where is there the most opportunity for me? Where can I have the most impact? And that's when I went into teaching and speaking more. And I thought, well, I can't coach 30 hours a week and also travel the UK and speak and do all this other stuff. So you then lean into your skill set. And I just knew from an early age, the only way to be good at all of this stuff and manage it effectively is to build a business, to have business acumen, to know how to build a system, a team, to have these kind of frameworks. So if there's personal trainers listening to this and they go to work every day going, I'm a pretty decent personal trainer and I'm really interested in fitness, but actually my true skill set lies elsewhere. Over time, I would encourage them to see what it is that is maybe elsewhere, because it might be that person could be a great level 3 tutor on PT courses, or they might be a good speaker, or they might be good at consulting with fitness brands, building recipe templates. Like there's so many job opportunities in the fitness industry, and personal training is just one of them. Going online is just one of them. Like being involved in a food brand's another one. You know, it's not just personal training. There's a massive industry out there that utilizes personal training, nutrition, and movement skill sets.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was going with the question about, you know, adapting sort of as you go forward into your journey, when, you know, you add something else into the mix. I guess it's like refinement, adding something else. By adding something else, I mean a child or 2 children or 5 children, depending on how desperate you are. Yeah. So that answers, I guess, that kind of question really.
Cool. So if I was just to talk about that in percentage terms, so like before I had a child, 70% of my work might have been my core business. And then like 20% of your work is like on your side hustle, something you're trying to start up, you've got an idea. And then there's this 10% where you're just like dabbling. And you'll always kind of do that if you've got a slightly opportunistic mindset. But when I had Ivy, all I did is reduced all my time down to the 70%. So I could just manage it and kind of tick over. And then as you come out of like nappies and stuff, you pick up that other 20%. And what we're then doing as individuals is we're testing other areas where we can excel as people, because ultimately that's what we want to do. Like if there's a personal trainer listening to this and they're not excelling in their career, like ask why. Should you be doing it slightly differently? Should you maybe be working with different clients? Maybe the gym's not working for you. Maybe you're not expressing your skill set in the right way. Yeah.
And I guess one last question, because obviously COVID did come along and you're all working away from an environment of being around other people. When you bring children into that, your life becomes all consuming around that thing. So girls and a boy in your case, Josh, pardon me, but it can be really, really isolating. And so like what advice would you give to kind of, from a male's perspective, because women deal with things very differently, in terms of like keeping in touch with people outside of your like 4 walls of your office and your team communication, and you know, building some kind of routine that keeps you away from this kind of isolated feeling of working by yourself when you're used to being in this kind of quite, you know, big sort of industry. You know, just working online is quite difficult. So lots of people have had to adapt to working online full time, but may sort of feel that they're kind of somewhat isolated from other fitness professionals maybe, or have had a child in that time as well, where that sort of compounds this kind of feeling of isolation. I know you live in the sticks, Ben, so
I might not be the best person to answer that, because I like being isolated. I'm a bit of I'm quite antisocial. I'm a little bit of a hermit. I like being tucked away in the middle of nowhere, keep myself to myself, and just pop up here, there, and everywhere when there's like an event on or something. So however, having always worked, not always, let's say out of my 15 years, I've been employed for about 3 of them. So I've worked for 2 companies. I worked for Jordan Fitness and I worked for Brendan Chaplin for about 3 years combined. So other than that, 12 years, I've been self-employed on my own as a one-man band. So I'm used to being and operating on my own. Having said that, I've started now a full-time contract with Future Fit, and they've got a like ridiculously big team. Like I had no idea. I'm talking like 40, 50, 60 people that are all spread all over the country. And even before lockdown, they had a big ethos of working from home, working remotely, and just traveling to head office as and when it's needed. And I'm sort of now surrounded by all of those people who are used to that through my internet in my spare room. And I can sort of like a phone call here and there, or a meeting on Teams and a video call or what have you. And it's sort of like feel like I'm part of a big team, even though I'm actually here on my own in the middle of nowhere. So I've kind of got the best of both worlds. It's worked quite well for me.
How about yourself, Ben?
Yeah, I'm very similar. I've run an internet business since 2008 alongside some other things. So I'm very happy being on my own. And that's why I do what I do. If there's anyone listening to this that is on the flip side of that and they are a bit more of an extrovert, they like contact, that's probably why they're a coach. They like turning up to a gym and talking to people. I think don't be scared to ask people for what you need. It's not a sign of weakness. You know, like, a loved one, let's say my mum, my wife, anyone might text me and say, can we talk? And they ring me up and I straight away, I know that they need contact. They know that they need support. I know that they need to talk to people. But when you're a personal trainer, you're the support network for so many people. Like you've got 40, 50, 60, however many clients looking to you to like be their rock. So when you don't have that rock, you need to find it and you just need to express it in an honest way. So you might text a friend and say, do you know what, mate? Feeling a little bit lonely at the moment. Can we have a chat? Can we have a Zoom? Can we meet at a park and walk 2 meters apart and have a chat? So I just think don't be scared to ask for what you want. You don't have to be the hero for everyone else.
What about you, Josh?
So I agree with Ben. With a lot of people, especially men, if we're talking about males, parents and lockdown, I think that a lot of men have this image of, right, I have to be the strong one, I have to, be the stoic partner and everything, which I think is absolute nonsense. But looking from a very practical point of view, if we're talking about personal trainers, one thing that I would probably implement or would have implemented at the beginning of the first lockdown is some more social aspects for your business. So I know that people have been doing like Zoom quiz nights and they've been doing like virtual get-togethers and they've been doing all these different things. So if I was a personal trainer right now and I needed more maybe contact with clients or outside of my personal life, I would definitely be doing more social stuff online. I'd find ways to interact with my clients in a way that is not training and nutrition related. And then other than that, I think building yourself a support system or in your personal life is very important. So, even if it's just a case of texting your family members or your friends like twice a week, just randomly saying, how's it going? Want to catch up? I think that's really important. But I think a lot of people don't like to make the first step. And I think that's really important that you just go, if you think about it, you should just text them and say, how's it going? What's going on? And you initiate the conversation, because some people won't do that. That's my thoughts.
When before the first lockdown happened, so if we look everything up until Christmas, I always had an approach where I love doing what I do. I love my work, but I almost had this ridiculous kind of facade that I would try to wear like a badge of honor, of that I love my work so much that that's what I do to relax. I don't need a hobby or anything like that. I just would, my work is my hobby, if that makes sense. And then there's an element of truth in that, but having then had the whole thing ripped away from you, I've very quickly realised that actually that is fucking bollocks. I do love work, but what I love even more is finishing work and going for a walk and playing on the swings with Molly, or just like sitting in the garden with the family, or actually just switching off and doing stuff that isn't work. And because I sort of, sort of like if you've got like a little stone in your shoe and you keep walking for years and years and years, and almost you just learn to live with it rather than taking it out, and then you don't realise how much discomfort it was causing because it's just become normal. And I genuinely, over 10, 15 years, had backed myself into that corner where I just was convinced that work was my entire life, and it came above socialising, and I don't even like socialising because I just love work. And then you look back and think, what a fucking bellend. I love work, but definitely not to the detriment of friendships that I've lost, relationships with family members that have broken down and dissolved, and all those types of things. That it was a really, really important eye opener for me to be able to assess what I actually do like and what I do enjoy and what I should be doing more of.
Massively agree.
Love
that. 100%. Cool.
Good
All
talk.
happy, Jesse?
Oh yeah, I'm happy. It's good to hear a man's perspective. It's not that different to a woman's, really, to be honest. It's just that men aren't obviously always that open about it, I guess. And a lot of men are personal trainers. A lot of men are personal trainers. Obviously, like the majority of the population in fitness are men.
Yeah.
So, I don't really work with that many men, anymore. But yeah, that's kind of the impression that I get. And obviously, quite a few of our friends in the industry are about to have children in the next few months. So, and I think that's probably answered Gaz's question as well. He's going to be a dad soon, so.
Hopefully. Yeah, was Josh, have you got Gaz's question on there? So just double check that there wasn't anything. I'm pretty sure it must have been covered comprehensively.
Yeah, I think it was about routines and expand. I think there was a question about expanding gym expansion.
Yeah. So, go on.
I'm not the man to ask about expansion because I've just dissolved. But in terms of what I sort of like my schedule and stuff like that, is that me and Natasha alternate early starts. So sometimes Molly will wake up at 5, sometimes 6:30, and we just alternate one day after the other. I get up with her one morning, she gets up the next. I'll take the dog out for a walk about 7:30, something like that. Showered up, ready to start work 8:30ish, and then 99 times out of 100, I knock off at 5 o'clock. Then it's like dinner time, bath time, bedtime, and I'm there like the vast majority of time. Whereas if that had happened a year ago, I would have missed every single one of them. Then when she's in bed by 7, then if I need to do an extra hour or something to catch up on something because I've had a disjointed day, I'll crack on when she's asleep. But I try to. I'll also, I've missed the middle of the day, I'll have a 2-hour gap in the middle of the day around lunchtime as well. So we'll have lunch together. We'll go for a walk, go to the park, and all that sort of stuff. So my schedule has changed drastically, and it's been a bit of a godsend, really, even though God doesn't exist. But
so Ben, how has your schedule changed in regards to being a dad and stuff, and how have you found communication with your team as well during lockdown and fatherhood? Has that changed at all?
No, it's not changed because I run a remote business, so everyone works all over the UK. So we've got very effective communication. My routine is I go to bed at around 8:30, aim to be asleep by 9. And then whenever Ivy gets up at like 4, 4:30, 5, 6, whenever that is, I get up with her. I usually have her for like 2.5, 3 hours. We play, go for a walk, etc. Then the wife gets up. I then go to work. That's anywhere from 8 till 9:30. This morning it was 10. And then I work with breaks like Mark for going for a walk, having lunch and stuff, and generally finish at about 4:30-ish. So work time is usually about 6 hours. Very rare I'll pick up any work in the evening. And yeah, I'm always the bather. I've bathed Ivy every day, apart from 2 days. And then 7 till 9 or 7:30 is, dinner with the wife and all of that. And that's most days. And obviously that's been quite fixed because of lockdown as well.
That's amazing. So part of the second part of Gaz's question is he's looking to expand as a gym owner. And he's asking, how did you go about building a team of like-minded individuals to truly get on board with your business?
I've always just hired on will rather than skill. And I've always taken it upon myself to train the skill in the individual. First person I ever hired was she started as a PA, and then she sort of just slowly took on everything, and she's still, the linchpin of my business. She's a head of operations. She runs everything. My second employee, I think, was my brother, and I basically said to him, "You're basically going to do everything and anything in marketing. Do you want an internship?" And he just learned on the job. We both learned on the job. And then Tom, my head of education, he came on board in 2013, 14, all out of an argument on social media. We were arguing about the science of something. And I liked the fact that he challenged me and he had a really critical mindset. So I ended up sort of helping him and training him and bringing him out of he was working as a supplement, working in the supplement company at the time, in a shop. So brought him on board, trained him up. And then everyone else has just obviously filled a need gap. And it's always been on will, like speaking to that person. What are you about? What drives you? Why? And I always have to ask the question about myself, like what drives you to work with Ben Coomber? Because ultimately they're on that bus. Like I need to know what their kind of attraction is. And, everyone that we bring into the business has sort of followed me online for a couple of years, buys into what I'm about. They want to join the kind of team from a cultural point of view. So it's been very easy to maintain culture because we've always brought on board motivated people. And the only time I've brought 2 people on because of purely their skill set, they're no longer in my business.
Nice. Makes a lot of sense. Love it. So I think it is now time for us to move on. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Jesse, you need to shoot off, do you? Or do you want to hang around?
I'm going to fly. I've got a meeting. So I shall see you soon. Thank you so much.
No problem. Good to see you.
All right. I'll see you later. Take care now.
Cheers, Jesse. Bye-bye. Josh, finish up. Has anything gone in the UK PTs group in the last couple of days that while we have Ben, last 2-3 minutes, anything that we can ask his opinion on?
There was actually one more question on the podcast thread that I did for Ben's questions. And Ben, you've actually responded to it, but you said you'd answer it, which is a guy called Shane said about when you started in the fitness industry, you didn't niche down and that you were the exemption to the rule. I'm not sure if you want to explore that a bit, if you want to set the record straight or something. It was a bit confusing.
Yeah. So obviously Shane said that he started listening to my podcast, I think around episode 200. So that's probably around 2015, 2016, he started to pay attention to my work. And at that point, I'd already been in the fitness industry like 10 years. So I always recommend to most trainers to try and niche down. And then what will happen is your work will naturally widen out as you become more well-known and people realize you can help more people. So when I first started as a personal trainer, I did train anyone and everyone, but kind of geared slightly more towards corrective exercise. But it's because I knew no different. That's just what every personal trainer was doing in 2006. We just try to help anyone we can, but we kind of know better now. But when I got more into business and I started my first online business, my niche was helping women that had always struggled with their weight. And I used to quote and talk about Weight Watchers and Slimming World a lot, saying, look, if you failed on these diets, like, I'm the guy to help you. So I did niche down. And then when I started BTN, I niched in terms of sports performance and physique. I wanted to help like guys, get into great shape. So I did niche, but over time, the niche widened. The beautiful thing of the internet now is if you do coach online, you can niche very easily, because all you need to do is, you can have multi-niches, because you just set up different websites and set up different packages and direct traffic through those packages with like specific paid advertising. So for example, in one of my businesses, we have 14 different niches where we micro target different people based on different problems, emotions, etc. But that's how geeky you can get with your marketing if you want. But yeah, when you're starting out, find what you're good at and coach those people that also want to be good at that thing.
Nice. So we've got another question, which is from Stepha Hibbard. And she said about, her question is, what was your vision when you started? And is it different today? So I think maybe we should make that a bit more specific. I think we should reference BTN. What was your vision when you started BTN? And is it different today?
Yeah, so BTN started out as just a way for me to coach people, and I wanted to become a key figure in the industry with online coaching. And obviously online coaching was quite young in its infancy when I started. Now it's a well done thing. Everyone's doing it. So I focused on the sports performance and sort of gym market. And then through popularity, so I really only set out to be a great coach online and have a flexible lifestyle. Because at the time I was also running retreats in Portugal and South Africa. I was also coaching kids, and I was also working in elite sport as assistant strength and conditioning coach. So I wanted something that fitted around that all really easily. So my vision was just to be an awesome online coach. And then as things evolve in your journey, you see where your potential is and you see what you're really good at. And then I thought, actually, I'm pretty good at this teaching thing. I can kind of say things in a way that people kind of get it. And then I sort of leaned into that, and BTN became an education company. So I think a vision can only get you so far in your career till you start to realize what the next steps are, because you can kind of get caught out. You've really got to master one area of your trade before you look to master another. That's why I always say to coaches, the best thing you can do is just become an incredible coach. And if you get really good results with Jane will tell Sally, and then Sally will tell Cindy, and Cindy will tell whoever. And that's how word of mouth marketing works. But you've got to get standout results first. So my mastery just continued. But if you were to talk about it from a wider value perspective in terms of what I want out of my life, the number one thing I want out of my life is freedom and adventure. And I know it might not look at it like it, because I work from home, I work in an office in my garden. To some people, that's not freedom, but I can work when I want. A lot of the time, I get to choose that. I can go on adventures. My work takes me away. So I wanted a business that would provide for that. And there's obviously many ways that can provide for that, given the industry that we work in and the power of the internet.
That's amazing. So I think pretty much that's us done for today. And I just wanted to say thank you for your time. I understand how busy you are, and with your daughter and everything, it's a busy time anyway. But just, I really appreciate you coming on and helping out everyone in UK PTs and anyone else that listens to this.
Thank you, fellas. Well, you have taken my longest ever podcast virginity.
There you go.
What are we on? An hour and 45?
And neither of us are Indonesian.
Good reference, like it.
Yeah, you know, it's like the skilled presenter that I am. Just be able to link back and make it all seamlessly linked together. It's just a knack.
Thank you very much, fellas.
Ben, thank you very much. No doubt we will catch you soon. As soon as the pubs are open, give me a bell and I'll meet you halfway.
Yeah, nice. Sounds good. Awesome.
Happy days. Cheers, Ben.
All right, fellas.
Au revoir.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. Don't forget to check back weekly for new episodes. If you want to join the UK's largest Facebook group for personal trainers, just search for UK PTs.